consciousness.
Take a deep breath and remember who you are. Yeah, they're gonna mess with you, baby, you're a star. Stepping in the spotlight, you know that it feels like time to put up a fight, honey. Got nothing left to lose, so let's start right now. Everybody want a piece of you. Gotta give them what they want, it's true. You're symphonic, yeah, so iconic. If you didn't know before, now you know. Now you know. Take a big step away from who you were. Flashing that smile and the whole world's a blur.
Yeah. It's Wednesday, and that means that I am live streaming with, whoops, did I just pop something crazy there? Live streaming with Stacey and Stacey Steinmiller, and we're doing this thing, and I'm watching the lights sort of flicker. There's all this construction going on 490, and there's a lot of vibrations, and this constant pounding that's been going on for like, I don't know, a week now. And I'm watching, like, praying that the power doesn't go out. This is an interesting way to work. I will say that. How are you, Stacey?
I'm doing good. I got my workout in, so I am ready to go.
Chilling in the lounge.
Yes, chilling in the lounge.
Well, and last night was great when I this is kind of like how it goes. It's like, hey, tomorrow's Wednesday. What are we going to talk about? And we're like, I don't know. And so Stacey, on the way back from something, decided to record a voice message and send it to me so that I got to hear her sort of stream of consciousness thinking out loud.
3.5 minutes. It's not too
great.
bad.
It was actually kind of cool to, like, it was like I was having a conversation with you, even though you couldn't hear me.
You get to know exactly what goes on in my head.
Exactly.
You're like, we're privy. It's like you were like in there.
Fly on the wall type of thing. But so after the back and forth, it was kind of like confidence. Confidence was the thing that I was like, and we've talked about this in the past briefly, but that difference between confidence and arrogance, like that line that you sometimes walk, or some people don't even walk that line. They just jump right over it and, you know, swim in arrogance. But the idea that confidence is so important in whatever your endeavor is, because, I mean, how many times have you met somebody that you're like, this guy doesn't know what the hell he's talking about, but boy, is he sure of himself. And you're, for some reason, you're drawn to that. You know, you're like, wow, that confidence, it's really, you know, people are drawn to that confidence. And it's only until you really, like, maybe jump into the nitty gritty that you go, hey, you're really confident, but you have no idea what you're talking about. But by that time, you know, you may have already written a check. I don't know.
Yeah. You're like, oh no.
And it has to be something that I've struggled with. Have you ever struggled with confidence?
Oh yeah. There's always layers to everything, and it's really interesting. Even just, I don't know, the other day I noticed, I was like, oh, I see where I'm selling myself short, where I'm not embodying as much confidence as I could, right? The more you do the work, the more you find these little holes and ways that it gives you an area to move further in. So it's an evolution, as I like to say. But this actually was a topic that came up a lot, even in my therapy practice, this confidence, arrogance conversation. So I think it's funny, or I don't know, right word there.
Interesting.
That we're talking about it. Yeah. Interesting. Yeah. It's interesting. That's a big topic. So yeah, I have my thoughts on it since I have talked about it with people for years.
So I have I have this kind of weird relationship with this idea of uh confidence as it relates to self promotion and putting yourself out there. It's weird because I know in the world that we live in, especially for both of us, for what we do for a living, you need to put yourself out there. You need to promote yourself. You have to go out and say, "Hey, I'm the person you want to work with because of this." And I have consistently had a problem with that because sometimes I see people who are out there promoting themselves and I'm like, "Oh, get over yourself." Like, come on. Like, and I don't know if that's like an inner jealousy thing, and it doesn't it doesn't have to be someone who I would view as a competitor either. It could just be something that, like, oh, I see this person on social all the time, like always talking about themselves, always talking about themselves. And I guess it's because, just growing up in the sort of the Catholic guilt of, like, you sit back and don't boast and don't build yourself up and don't brag to people and stuff. Like, I think there's like that disconnect for me about what's the difference between, confidently promoting yourself and being a braggart and being arrogant, and you know what I mean? Like, and walking that line, I think is difficult for a lot of people, especially for me, because I don't want to be viewed. I care about how other people view me. So I don't want to be viewed as someone who gets out there and just talks about himself and just me, and tries to build myself up as this great thing, even though, we all know that I am.
Of course, you are. Um, so I see the difference as arrogance, meaning you think you're better than other people, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Whereas confidence is just embodying your gifts and what is true and allowing that to shine. So it's really about what you believe, deep within, and then that energy is what's going to come out, which is why you can sell. If you have enough confidence, you can sell anything, right? I can sell you my garbage with enough confidence, but I also have to believe that my garbage is worth whatever I'm selling it for, right? And that's not necessarily arrogance. That's just me being confident in the value of my garbage and communicating that in that energy. But arrogance, I see more as saying, like, I'm better than you, like, then you're less than me. That's how I view it, anyways.
Yeah. Or, what about I'm the best, nobody else even comes close. I mean, that would be pretty much arrogance. Not necessarily like I'm better than you, I'm better than everybody.
Right. Yeah. So, and I guess the thing is, we are all unique and we all can be best, right? In our way. Nobody can be me better than me, right?
Mm.
That's not possible. So I am the best at being me and I sell being me, right? That's part of the package. And that's the same for you too. So I think it usually bothers us, like you're saying too, if it's activating anger or frustration or whatever, then it will point like what within me needs some healing or some looking at or some shifting. um
So
and
so
yeah.
if I'm seeing someone who's on social media and they're talking about what they do and in my view, I'm like, oh my God, this guy's so full of himself. That's a projection of my own insecurities that I'm
Yeah,
seeing in
yeah,
that person.
exactly. Yeah,
Can
yeah,
we
because if
is
you're
there
in your confidence, you don't care.
is there a subject matter that we can talk about that doesn't always revert back to to me projecting
Sorry.
my own
Well, I'm not saying just
everything.
you, Scott, in general. I'm saying anybody.
No, I know. I'm just saying it's like seems like everything that we talk about ends up coming back to in some way, coming back to
Yep.
this idea of you're projecting your crap onto
Yep.
other people and expecting them to,
Yep.
adhere to your own
Mhm. That's
expectations.
because that's
And
what it is. And
is
that's
it
my belief
always?
system. So that's right. So that's also my belief system. Not everybody has that belief system, but I believe it's all a mirror. Right. So, and whenever I'm activated, it has nothing to do with the other person. It's always me. Right. So if you piss me off, Scott, that is about me. Right. Or like if I'm have that negative response to it. And then your response to me is within you, right? It's that I think I use that cup filling over thing. If you got a full cup, and somebody knocks you, what spills out? Well, whatever was in the cup, right? So if
Mm,
um yeah. Yeah. So and that's another thing. It's I noticed even in my own journey, like recognizing, oh, these things that used to bother me don't bother me so much anymore. Well, how is that possible? Right? It's not that the world has gotten better outside of me, right? It's not like you know, these people are still being them, but if it
means that
doesn't
you've
bother me
grown.
as much, it's exactly. So then it really shows how that was about me. And yeah, that was my insecurities coming out, or yeah, my jealousy, or my belief in lack or whatever. But um then yeah, so then it can really shift. And when I see somebody out bragging or being boastful, sometimes I'm like, good for them. Like, way to go. Cause I know how hard that is to do. Um, and it's also trusting myself, right? So if I trust, or like you're saying, like a sleazy salesman sort of, thing that a lot of people talk about. It's about trusting myself and my intuition that I know the right questions to ask. I can be discerning as a buyer, right? So, but if I don't believe I'm discerning as a buyer, I'm putting the onus on the other person to make that decision for me when it's not their job to do. So it's also that radical responsibility aspect of it's my responsibility to be a discerning buyer and trust in my buying decisions and also believe that everything is serving me, you know?
That confidence thing.
Yeah, right. So then it comes back to then it's working on our own confidence that I get to decide what's best for me, you know?
That's interesting. And I think well, I mean, I know that I still have, I'm constantly have a lot of work to do. I constantly have a lot of growing to do, but in the case where I see someone who is doing something that my gut reaction is that they're full of themselves and they're arrogant and stuff, that's my cue to take a look and sort of analyze the situation and be all right, why am I thinking that way? What is it about did this person say you suck and everybody else sucks and I'm awesome and I can do no
Right.
wrong?
And they
Or
probably didn't. They probably
or
didn't. Yeah.
right, or are they just saying, "Hey, I'm really good at this and you should work with me."
Right. Exactly. And for the most part, that's what they are saying.
Yeah.
And that is attractive and it will draw you in. And that's the way sales and dating, all of it, that's how
Oh
it
yeah,
goes,
definitely
right?
dating. I mean, jeez. All of us nice guys, raise your hand. Nice guys, raise your hand. Now, how many times have you as a nice guy uh been left behind by the arrogant jerk who's super confident?
So here, I think you just landed on your answer as to why this is a thing for you.
Oh, because of the women? Because of dating? No. No, I don't care about that anymore. I caught my limit.
Not anymore, but that's probably when it started.
Well, so no, so all right, so we're gonna talk about that situation. Um, I have plenty of friends who are females who have admitted to me that over the years they have gone out with super confident, good-looking guys who turned out to be trash human beings, who turned out to be terrible in a relationship, who turned out to be very selfish and not giving and just and didn't go for the guys who were like I guess I could say more like me in the fact that they were more genuine, more giving, more thoughtful, and all that kind of stuff. Because, but because they lacked the confidence, the self confidence, that was what drew them to the other guy. And 95% of the time, that confidence translated into a terrible relationship when it got like down to the real nitty gritty of what you need in a relationship. Now I know that there might be a study about that, who knows, but it still goes back to that idea that the confidence that you have is something that people are drawn to. So
Yep.
imagine how good you could be is if you combined that self-confidence with emotional
Intelligence.
intelligence, being able to identify and read people and understand it, and like last time, meeting them where they're at. So you combine this confidence, you combine all of these things that draw people to you, but combine those with the things that enable them to stay with you and stay liking you because you are easy to get along with and you're thoughtful and
Right.
you're service oriented or whatever it is.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, you
Yeah.
can have both. And that's the ideal is to be both, be all of that, embody all of it. And yeah, sometimes the confidence can act as a mask for people, right? To draw people in and get admiration or validation and so forth, but then haven't done the work to move beyond that.
Right.
And yeah, then they have a lot of maybe short-term, right, relationships, right? Once it gets to a certain spot, then it's not going to continue because that deeper work needs to be done. Or yeah, it could be the opposite where it's hard to have that initial attraction drawing in when you're sitting in your soup of insecurity, that's not magnetic at all. So yeah, confidence I think is massive, right? But it's for that magnetism, the sales, the initial attraction, all of that. That's I think key, to be honest,
Mm.
for
What
it.
would what would
Yeah.
you say to someone who is lacking self-confidence and needs to work on that? Like, what are some things that people can do to work on that? Because it sounds like, oh yeah, just be more self-confident, but like, and do the work. Well, what is the work? what
Well,
what
there's
does
a
that
fear.
entail? Hmm?
What's the fear? There's a fear there, right?
So
Like,
yourself, yeah. So I believe that the self-confidence, the issue, at least for me, that well, it's multi levels, I guess. The why am I why do I lack at sometimes why do I lack self confidence? Is it? I mean, that's a really really deep introspecting dive that you have to go to figure out. I mean, that's like you know fits on the couch type of stuff where I got to sit down with
it's
with a
on the couch stuff. Yeah,
psychotherapist, a
we don't need to go
psychoanalyst
that deep,
to to
but so
figure
you
out.
could also, yeah, you could just also flip it then. You don't need to dive so much, but knowing, okay, there's a fear, right?
So
Just
it
so
comes down to a fear, basically, like the fear of being
we
laughed at. Let's just make it real
right,
simple.
rejection,
The
right,
feel of
exactly. So it's
rejection.
yeah. So then the idea is, if I am confident and put myself out there and then I'm rejected, I can't handle the rejection, so I'm not going to come out and be confident. I'm going to come out with my insecurity and then wait for people to have pity on me and accept me that way. But that never feels good either. So then the work becomes putting yourself out there, getting rejected, and building resilience around that so that you can keep building that confidence and putting yourself out there, because the rejection is no longer going to stifle you from that. So yeah,
it reminds me of one of the many self-help / sales, like if you're going to talk about like the Napoleon Hills and the and those kind of guys, and I can't think of any of the other names like Zig Ziglar and a lot of those motivational speakers. All of them, or the majority of them, were in the sales industry. Yep. They were salesmen of some kind. Yep. And almost all of their books are based on that, on how to become a better salesman. And one, I can't remember who it was, but one of them talked about how they just like they forced themselves to get through the no's, like to get as many no's as they could, so that they were numb to that rejection. So they were numb to getting the no, so that when someone says, no, I'm not interested, I don't want to work with you, that it doesn't hurt them. It doesn't affect them. They're like, okay, they just move on, or they try harder, or whatever it is. And that's always been fascinating to me.
Yeah.
Because I think that's got to be the hardest thing.
Well, it's hard as long as you give that meaning. And then once you stop giving it meaning, it's no longer hard. But the way to do that is to do the thing, right? So that is to make the offer, because if I go around and be like, hey, you want to be my client? Do you want to work with me? And I like did that to everybody on the street and heard no, then then you need that muscle, so that when you do get a no, you don't end up collapsed on the couch for 5 days, crying because you were rejected or whatever it is. Yeah. Like we have to have that skill. And so I think, so that's how I think we exercise that confidence muscle, is doing the thing, is putting that fear at risk. That's the only way to make it not a fear anymore, right? We fear what we don't know. It's always the anxiety before the thing is the highest, right? And then once you do it, then you're like, oh yeah, okay, it wasn't that bad, right?
Yeah. Yeah, and it's easy to say that. It's easy to say that to someone, and a lot harder for them to actually jump in and challenge that fear and work through that fear, because it's just that it's one of the reasons why I never got into sales specifically, even though now I have my own business, so I'm sort of I'm sort of forced into being in sales, but I am, but I'm not. Like a lot of my business has come from word of mouth. And if someone calls me and says, I'm looking to work with you, I'll sell it. I will sell that. I will 95% of the time, I will convince them to do it. Just based on how I am to work with and my own personality and my knowledge and that kind of thing. However, the cold calling, the walking into some place and saying, hi, have you ever thought about starting a podcast? That kind of thing is like, oh, hell no. Quick story. And when I was probably 19, 20, I don't even remember how old I was, somewhere in that age group, I was looking for a job. I think it was while I was going to school. I was looking for a job, and I saw, and everybody kept talking about telemarketing. This was, in the early 90s or whatever. So it was like telemarketing. You can make lots of money in telemarketing, and you don't have to do, it's not real hard and stuff. So I answered an ad, and I went to this place. This was in South Florida, and It was a call center that was your whole job was to sell service contracts for air conditioning. Now we're in South Florida, so seems like that's like
Should be easy,
yeah,
right?
selling lollipops to kids or something. It's easy.
Yeah.
And I went in there and it was an office. There was a very rough looking woman, strong, sturdy, angry looking woman sitting at a desk at the front of this room. And then the room on either side, there were cubicles, and there were people in these cubicles, and they had a telephone, and they had a big book. And you were supposed to go through that book, call the number, read the script, and then I assume that once, if you actually got a sale, that you would either fill it out or maybe even send them to someone else who was going to do that. I don't remember, but I got in there and they, gave me my 5 minutes worth of training, and I sat there and the first call I made, and this was like 8:30 in the morning. The first call I made, the guy was like, I woke him up. He's like, "Are you kidding me? It's freaking 8 o'clock in the morning." And so like I was like, oh God, I just woke something up. The next person I called, the guy I was calling, can I speak to Mr. Johnson? Mr. Johnson passed away. Okay. And then the next time I call and there's a woman and there's kids screaming in the background and it's like chaos. And I'm like, are you kidding me? And I was done. I was like, I'm not doing this. And the woman at the desk was like, Scott, you need to be making more calls. You're not calling frequently enough. You need to be making more calls. Let's go, more calls. And I was like, are you kidding me? That was back when we had pagers. And so I beeped myself and I was like, I gotta go. I got a family emergency. I was out of there.
That's hilarious.
But
Oh,
I think back to that time, and I think that those experiences with the cold call are what built those fears in me. That fear of rejection, that fear of just because I like to try to be considerate, so that fear of interrupting someone, of being, doing something that's going to make someone pissed at me for whatever reason, even though it's not really my fault. I happen to call, like, what are you doing calling now? I really feel like that's like the root, that's like one of the earliest memories that I have of that kind of like fear of rejection in the business world, like in the sales.
Right. Yeah. I guess we can do some EMDR on that, but that also just goes to show the it's gonna be like so it goes to show how our perception of things really makes a difference of how we move forward with them,
right?
Whereas if it's just like, oh, that was just meaningless, it was just a job and that's what they had me to do, and it says nothing about who I am as a person, right? Then you're not going to hold on to that negative feeling around that, right? So we always get, speaking of EMDR, part of the process is getting to the core negative I am statement, right?
And remind me what EMDR is. I've heard this a million times and I can never remember what it is.
Eye movement desensitization and reprocessing. That was my expertise when I had my therapy practice.
How's this?
So it's back and forth with your eyes.
Am I doing it?
And so getting to that negative core belief, I mean, CBT gets to that too, other modalities as well. But anyway, so say after that experience and you look back on that experience and your negative core belief is, I am a bother, right? Then that's going to color all of your experiences going forward, because now you have a core belief about yourself that I am a bother and you don't want to be a bother. So you're going to consciously try to make yourself not a bother.
I think you got it. I think you hit the triangle right on the triangle. That was yeah, because that's it. That's that I am a bother, that I'm bothering you. I am disrupting your day and I don't want to do that. And I don't want you to think poorly of me because of that disruption.
Yeah. Right. So then the flip is to obviously not think you're a bother, right? You can think I'm a delight, right? So if I believe I'm a delight, then then you get and somebody's like, you just woke me up. And then I'd be like, what's this problem with that guy? I'm a delight. He doesn't even know what he's missing
Dude,
out
it's
on.
8 o'clock in the morning. What the hell are you? Why
What
aren't you
like
up? Why
was he
haven't you
just
been up
is
for
he
3 hours?
hungover? Right. Like what's wrong with him? Right. So that's the thing is like, so based on your core belief about self, that's what I mean about changing your reality and how your thoughts, emotions, and belief literally change your reality, right? Because it's the same exact situation, but because the core belief about self is different, your whole experience is different, right? So it's like I want to like drill this into everybody's head right now.
Now here let me throw a monkey wrench into this works
Yeah,
here.
go ahead.
So if I encounter someone who is, they're thinking to themselves, I'm a delight and I don't care if I'm a bother to this person. Obviously if they actually physically say that, they say, I'm a delight and I don't care if I bother you, that's a little bit different than them acting that
You're
way.
saying two different things there.
Okay.
Right. I'm a delight is a belief about self.
Okay.
I don't care if I bother other people. That's separate. Does that make sense?
Okay.
Yeah.
I was making that connection. So that connection is incorrect.
Wait, those are two separate things.
Okay.
Because if I believe I'm a delight and I come in and I bebop in and someone's like, Stacey, I was trying to have a conversation here and you just like completely interrupted me, I would say, oh, I'm sorry.
Right.
And I would walk away. Right. But like, do you see how those things, but I still believe I'm a delight.
Right.
And that's why I bebopped into the conversation as if everything was okay. But when somebody says like, oh, hey, like you're bothering me, they'll be like, oh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to bother you. Right. And then you bebop away. But I still hold the belief I'm a delight. So I will delightfully bebop somewhere else into another conversation. And I'm not going to then but if I go, I'm a bother, now I'm afraid to go to that next conversation.
Yeah,
right.
No more
and then I'm not going to talk to that person. I'm not going to bebop over.
No bebopping.
I'm going to maybe slink over and be like, oh no, I need to make a sale. So now I got to talk to these people, but I believe I'm a bother.
Sorry to interrupt, but I was wondering if you might have 5 minutes to talk to me. It's okay if you don't. Right. It's okay if you don't. But yeah.
Right. And exactly. So that's that whole process. And that's why that core belief is so important when it comes to sales, I guess what we end up talking about today. Somehow.
Yeah. And my intention obviously was not to talk about sales, but when you talk about confidence, it's almost impossible not to make that connection, because that's what a salesperson is. They're confident. They're confident in themselves. They're confident in their product, at least as far as you know.
Yeah.
And they're confident that you need them, that you need what they got. And that's
they want. So that's the other thing too, is such belief. Yes, exactly. Like, so it's getting such belief in your service or product, right? That if my service is life-changing, and there's people that really want that. And they want to change their life. They want to change their beliefs about themselves so that they can have the best business possible, right? I mean, that is what I do, right? And so I truly believe that's important, because there's so many people that are struggling, and it's because of their thoughts and their emotions and all of this. It's not that they need a better script. I truly believe that. They don't need a better script. You don't need a script at all. You need to believe in yourself. Like that's the secret. And so since I truly believe it, if I don't go talk to these people who are stressed out, right? Feeling like they need a better script, and I tell them, then I would feel I'm doing a disservice by not letting them know that, hey, there's actually another way that will not only change your business, it'll change your entire life. And I can help you with that. Right. So it's like, so if you truly believe what you're doing is life changing, then that's needed, right, to support having those conversations. And for you, Scott, like knowing like having a podcast is huge for businesses, right? They get authority and visibility, right? They make more money, they make more connections, right? And knowing like wow, there's these people that have this great information, and they could do this podcast and that will really help them, right? And you go with that energy of like, hey, you have this great product or this great idea. Have you ever thought about doing a podcast? Yeah, but I don't want to put the time and energy, and technology scares me. And well, I have a whole service for that so that you don't have to do that, so that you can just do the podcast and then go back to your business and do your other things, right? And knowing like, so yeah, don't you? Oh yeah, I want that. I don't want to have to learn how to do a podcast because that's not what I do for a living, right?
Right.
Yeah. So
and that, rewriting that inner script is probably the hardest thing that we can all do as human beings, at least for me. Because as you're saying all that, I'm like, yeah, I believe all those things that you're saying. I believe that 100%. And I still don't want to walk up to some stranger and start talking to him about it. I just don't want to do it. Like, I do not want to do it. It's like the hardest thing for me to bust through is that feeling, is that belief, is that I get the ickies from that idea of walking in and talking to someone. Now, if I'm introduced to that person and we're having a conversation and then I bring it up because that's where the conversation goes, that's a different thing. But it's that icebreaker part, or lack of icebreaker. I don't know. Like if the icebreaker is me selling, that's the part that I'm like,
then don't, you don't have to do that, right? Like you can just have a conversation. And I'm going to give Joseph Luckett a shout out right here because he wrote the book 0 to 100. It's the gold method in networking. And I guess I can find that and link that. And he talks about real relationships, like building relationships with people that you aren't starting the conversation for the sale. You're literally just meeting people and you talk, and then you might find out that they want what you have to offer, and then it goes from there. But you don't have to lead with the sale. I look at it as a numbers game. The more people that know about me, the more people that the chances you're going to find that want like, oh yeah, I'd really love some coaching. I'd really would want that. And it's like, okay, cool. But if I don't go and have conversations or say hi to anybody, right, then how am I going to make that even possible? So it's also just taking the pressure off and literally just having a conversation and not making it feel so like the pressure.
That was a perfect way to wrap this whole thing up. And you're giving me the confidence to do the work. Does that make sense?
Exactly. Yeah.
When I drove in today, I told myself that I was going to do more about that. Like I was going to really work on that block that I have. And so, that's thanks to you and thanks to the live stream that we talked about confidence versus arrogance and everything else and all that stuff. And wow, we went long today, almost 40 minutes.
We did.
Look at that.
And
must have been a meaty conversation.
You are a delight, and that's
I'm
the
a delight.
medicine.
And shout out to Jesse Cruz.
Hey, Jesse.
He's giving us flames here.
Yes, I just chatted with Jesse earlier. That's what
Jesse was on my Positive Blatherings podcast a long time ago.
Oh wow!
Yeah, cool. Does a lot of public speaking and getting people into public speaking. So, well, thanks, Stacey. I appreciate you and all you do and your coaching business. And if you want to get coached, you can talk to Stacey, radicallifecoach.com. Is that correct? I think one of these eventually, one of these weeks, I'll remember your website.
You remembered it today. Today's the day. We get to
and I said it with not so much confidence, but rockvox.com is my website if you want to do a podcast and increase how people look at you and how they know that you are an expert in your field. That's how you do it. Podcast. All right. I'm done. I'm done with this stuff. Time to go back to work. Thanks, Stacey. We'll see you next week.
Everybody want a piece of you.